Hello, welcome to another episode of Karma, Destiny and Choice. Today we will be looking at the subject of establishing priorities. I'm in the studio with Sister Denise, who will be taking us through what this means and also tools as to how one should make this better for yourself, make the situation better if one's priorities are not in order. Sister Denise, hello, it's great to have you back.
Hello, Magla, thank you.
When one looks at priorities, there are the obvious ones, like taking care of your body, taking care of your children and your spouse and your home and your pets, etc. But something tells me that you have an entirely different take on the subject.
I often ask people a very simple question which is very difficult to answer, but I find it very helpful because it really forces us to determine what our priorities are. And the question is very simply, what do you want? And there's so many different levels on which you could answer that question. So I ask people, okay, go deep. What do you really, really, really want? What is the most important thing that you want? Because what you want motivates you to go and get it. So you want an ice cream, okay, that's nice, but after 2 minutes it's over, and then what do you want? And so you kind of go through different levels. One thing that many people want is a feeling of security.
Yes, that runs deep with many.
Yeah, and insurance companies often offer you peace of mind, which God also offers you, but you know, it's a very different level of peace of mind. Do you want to achieve something? Do you want to acquire something? Do you want to become something? Do you need certain things in order to feel that you exist? You know, it really asks you to go deep. Because establishing priorities means, first of all, what's the most important thing there is? And then what's the second most important? And the third most important? And you have to set them in order. And I think it's difficult for a person using the word priorities. What are your priorities? And people may easily come up with a list of obvious things. But this question, what do you want, I think goes deeper. What do you want? Do you want to be married with a family? Do you want freedom? Do you want ecstasy? Do you want encounter with God? Do you want success? I mean, there are so many different things that are really very high priorities for a person, and we need to really think about what we want personally, and then we also need to think about, okay, if this is my priority, is it the best I can do for myself? Or is there something higher that I can go for? You know, it is said, aim high. When you're looking at what you want, or you could look at it as, okay, what is the most important thing in your life? Are you enjoying your immortality? And if you are in that mentality that I'm a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful being of light and I'm immortal, okay, from that angle, what is your priority? Because depending on how you are positioning yourself in your own mind, that also will determine your priorities.
What's important to person A is not necessarily the same thing that will be important to person B. How does one know whether what you consider to be priorities are not desires or wants or things that at the end of the day are bad for you?
This is why you have the expression, I think, get your priorities straight, which implies that somebody has put their desires and wants and trivial things to be the highest priority, and they make a mess of their lives because they put trivial things in a position which should be occupied by important things, and they put important things in a trivial position. They got their priorities all out of order and upside down. So definitely, while everyone is individual and they do have different priorities that are real priorities, still there is an overarching sense of how to prioritize things in your life, which is not totally universal, but close to that.
Sister Denise, you know, earlier you spoke of body consciousness and soul conscious. So when a person is body conscious, their priorities will be rather different from somebody who is soul conscious.
Yeah, definitely that will be different.
So doesn't your consciousness determine what your priorities are?
Your consciousness plays a very big part in it, but even within that, you need to take a look and see, okay, what is really, really, really important for you? If you make a comparison with body-conscious priorities and soul-conscious priorities, a body-conscious person definitely will be afraid of death.
Yes.
So they will definitely be interested in security, money, property, things that go by the name of permanent, but which are actually impermanent. But the illusion of permanence is a very high priority for a body-conscious person. Status, fame, wealth, political power, economic power. They may want to be recognized, respected, regarded, honored, because their sense of identity is tied up with how the world reflects them back to themselves. And I think in comparison with that, if you say, okay, well, I'm establishing myself as a soul-conscious person, then it means my high priorities are to do with my soul. And the key, I think, for a soul is the relationship with God, because that's an eternal, perpetual thing, which is really eternal. And you're interested in your spiritual purity, your spiritual powers, your spiritual beauty. You're interested in settling your karma. You're interested in being in contact with high spiritual other people, as well as with God. I think maintaining your integrity would be a very high priority. Accumulation of goods and chattels is not a high priority. Any kind of insurance against death, destruction, whatever, it's not so high a priority. You need to take care of that, but that's not the most important thing. You have to be rational, coherent, reasonable, sensible to maintain your connection with your body, because this body that you are in during this period of time where a person has maximum opportunity to develop themselves spiritually. So keep your body in good order.
One of the teachings within the Brahma Kumaris that has always commanded my respect is that the Brahma Kumaris never advocates practicing spirituality in a mountain top somewhere, divorced from everyday reality. It asks of one's students to live within your homes, within your families, go to your business every day, or your government job, or your responsibilities as a housewife, and practice spirituality in that context. How will these people then define their priorities? And the reason I'm asking this is because you have practical responsibilities, you know, like earning money, paying your taxes, raising your children, etc. And then there's the spiritual side. Walk us through how one maintains a balance. You have to pay attention to both and neglect neither.
If you look at the comparison between Raj Yoga as practiced according to the system of the Brahma Kumaris and the yoga that is practiced by one who is called a sannyasi, someone who goes off into the mountains and the jungles, from a karmic point of view, it is said that if you leave the world, you may be married, you may have children, so you make your wife into a widow, which is negative karma, and you make your children into orphans, so you're delinquent in taking care of them. So you're going for the purpose of pure karma, but you're doing negative karma by doing that. And so this Raj Yoga that we practice, we call this Sahaj Raj Yoga. And Sahaj has a number of meanings, and the one that we're most familiar with is easy. But it's not necessarily very easy to do this. There's another meaning which I find very intriguing and which corresponds to what your question is. Sahaj also means that you practice spiritual discipline in the context of people. And when you are not disturbing the social system, then you're not accumulating the negative karma of being delinquent or neglectful of your duty, your social duty, because you are renouncing things that you don't need and which are harmful for you. In Raj Yoga, we say, okay, you be vegetarian. Make sure that your life is as pure, as peaceful, as balanced and harmonious as possible. You try to have your negative emotions under control through your meditation, not through force. Meaning that you're living in the normal context, house, work, community, traffic, taxes, voting, whatever it is, okay? And you are applying very, very high-level spiritual principles, but you're not disturbing the society at all. You may not be following the rules that everybody else is following and which get them into bondage with each other, conflict with each other, but you are following quite well-known ways of spirituality, because it's all set out in the Bhagavad Gita. And at the same time, you are making yourself into someone who's having a direct karma with God.
That's beautiful.
A direct karma with God means that you live your life in remembrance of God. You follow the directions and recommendations that God gives for living a highly spiritual life in circumstances of adversity. Adversity in the sense that life is not so easy here. There is, it's very competitive. There's not enough money, there's not enough land, there's not enough food, there's not enough this and that. You have to manage.
Also, when you practice spirituality in today's world, you're swimming against the current, aren't you?
You're definitely swimming against the current, and yet you keep your head above water. Even we are given this example of the lotus. So you are in the world, but you're not of the world. So you're not worldly, you don't entertain yourself in ways that end up harmful. You really understand your responsibilities and you fulfill them. There is mutual regard and respect. You see everyone as a spiritual brother or sister. You do not become possessive. You know deep down that this is a performance and all are actors and you function accordingly.
You just said you do not become possessive.
Yes.
Possessive of what or whom?
People. My wife, my child, my employee, my servant, my student, my whatever. Because when you become possessive, you limit other people. You deprive them of their freedom. You oblige them to be the way you want them to be. This is possessive. Now, you give people their freedom, you understand your duty in different relationships, but you take your sustenance from God. You don't sustain yourself from people that you take possession of. No. Now, you also do not sustain yourself from your possessions. You use them in the manner of a trustee. And you use them, including your money, your property, whatever, in a way that corresponds to how God teaches us to relate with material. So everything has to be used for a meaningful, coherent, positive purpose. And overall, what you're looking for is benefit. Benefit to the people around you. You want a give and take of positive energy between yourself and other people. But you're not going to use people to support you or to sustain you. And so your relationships are quite good quality because of that. You're ready to die as and when necessary, when the call comes. And you're ready to let go of people, places and things when their time with you is up. You're quite conscious of time as there's a time when you're together with these people and there's a time when you part ways. And you were mentioning earlier about how difficult it is when it's the time of parting because of the attachment. And so someone who's in spiritual practice is all the time living in the context of people, places and things, but without depending on them, and so there's not so much in the way of attachment. So when it's over, it's over.
There obviously emerges from time to time situations where your priorities, your spiritual priorities, clash with your worldly responsibilities. There's a juxtaposition. How do you know what to do? The reason, Sister Denise, I'm asking you this question is because it is difficult to lead a spiritual life in the year 2019, 2020, because everything and everyone is against you. You get it from all sides. You get resistance from all sides, from your own body, from the members of your family, from the people that you work with, from life.
I think that when you're setting up your spiritual life, you encounter that because there's a lot of fine-tuning that you have to do, and it may take you a little while to fine-tune it. But I think you get to a point where you have understood the balance and you have established who and what you are. Because the thing is, in the world we live in, if you all of a sudden decide that you're going to live your life differently, that change is what people are reacting to. And you're doing things differently from them, so they will react to that. And they want to know if you're for real, because when you do this kind of practice, it is known to be very good, very positive, very pure, but it's also known to be practically impossible.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
But the thing is, if you say, okay, I'm going to do something that's practically impossible, they'll say, all right, let's see. And so they may test you, they may try to break it down, and they need to do that because if you're solid, then you become like a rock for them. And this is one of the things that people need, is for there to be, or for them to know that there are people who are this much solid, this much powerful in their own practice, in their own way of being. Because it gives people hope. They get disappointed, they get abandoned, they get betrayed, and they don't want another one of those. And so they have a very important right to test you and try and give you a hard time just to see if you're for real. Because if you are for real, then they like to put faith in you. God is maybe intangible and inaccessible to many people. But if you can connect, and other people can see that you connect, then that gives them someone for them that's more tangible, that they can feel secure about. Because, okay, this one is connected with God, so if I'm connected to God through this one or around this one, it's reliable. Yeah, this is what they want, reliability. The other thing that I think is very important is that because you know the laws of karma, you understand about destiny, and you are quite experienced in making good choices, then you will perform your performance well. And people will see that the consequences of how you are conducting yourself, even in circumstances of adversity, under trials or whatever, but that you handle yourself well, you maintain a stable, steady stage, and so they feel secure around that.
I have met individuals who call themselves spiritual and who have immersed themselves into spirituality to quite a deep level, and they are quite sincere about it. But they're ill and do not have 2 farthings to rub to their name. What's up with that?
You would have to say that they didn't understand something, and so they got themselves in that trouble.
Spirituality has in the past been associated with, the word is not poverty, but basic simplicity.
I think we're talking about religion.
Okay, so draw that distinction between the two for us in this context.
So if somebody decides to become a monk or a nun, they take a vow of poverty, chastity and obedience. I didn't take any vow like that.
Right.
You know, what? Excuse me. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
You know, it's me and God, and I have access to His knowledge, so I can interpret it how I understand it needs to be done. I may not get it right, and if I don't get it right, then the interplay between me and circumstances is such that I have to adjust my interpretation until it is right. Poverty, what's useful about poverty? What we need is to dispossess oneself of possessiveness. I like good tools, because then I can do good work with good tools. There's nothing worse than peeling potatoes with a really bad knife.
Heaven forbid. What a position to find oneself in.
I use a computer that works, a car that works. I need machinery that works to do what I have to do. I think that you don't need to be extravagant, you don't need luxury, that's completely superfluous, but you have to understand what you need in order to fulfill what you have to do. Poverty is not part of the Brahma Kumari description of spirituality. Simplicity, definitely.
That is so good to know.
Poverty is a sign of people who have a lot of bad karma.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not about impoverishing oneself, it's all about enriching oneself, but it's not about greed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being showy. You know, you don't need lots and lots of stuff, because you have to look after it, but you need the stuff that you need, and you have to become quite skilled in managing stuff. You know, if you have too much stuff, you give it away. You know, be generous. You have things, so you give it. You don't need to be burdened down with extra stuff. So keep your life as lean as possible. Eat good food. You don't need to have expensive food, but don't put bad food into yourself. Not a good idea, because that's your health insurance policy. You may have another health insurance policy as well, but if you exercise, eat properly, sleep properly, everything properly, you're going to be healthy. Have good friendships. look after yourself well. Everything you do must be meaningful, and it's like an investment in the future, an investment in the world, an investment in civilization where everyone is able to be self-realized and fulfilled. And I don't want to make myself obey anybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Atom, for joining us. I found today's topic of discussion rather interesting. I didn't realize that there was so much when one has to look at one's priorities, but I like the way Sister Denise has unpacked the subject for us, and I do hope this has been of some benefit to you at home. Take care and goodbye.